Welcome to the Decision Lab podcast, the sanctuary for wellness professionals like therapists, coaches, creators, and more who are looking to over-deliver to their clients.
We uncover the truth behind cutting-edge wellness products by going straight to the founder.
We use our backgrounds in neuroscience, chemical engineering, and marketing to ask the hard questions in order to eliminate bias, misinformation, and fancy marketing language.
Allowing you to make better wellness decisions and recommendations for yourself and your clients.
So if you're a leader in the health and wellness space, welcome. This podcast was designed for you.
Join us every week for interviews that will change how you think about wellness. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Decision Lab podcast. Today, we're talking to Craig Mason. Craig is the co-founder and CEO of Raise Health, a company dedicated to transforming mental health through AI. Craig is driven by his personal experiences with mental health, as well as his expertise in health tech. Before founding Raise Health, Craig held senior executive roles at Cerner and served as Chief Innovation Officer at Signature Performance. He has a proven track record of leading impactful teams and generating significant growth. Welcome to the Decision Lab podcast, Craig. We're so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Super pumped to be here.
The man, the myth, the legend. One of the first questions that we'd like to ask, Craig, is if your parents had to describe you in 3 words, what would they describe you as?
Curious,
Nice.
persistent, optimistic.
Curious, persistent, and optimistic. How have those helped you?
I've never met a challenge or a dumpster fire that I don't approach with a smile on and think that I can fix it. Always leaning in to try and make a difference. And there's always a solution. Always be a problem solver, not a problem whiner.
I like that. And did you learn those from your parents, or where did you get these skills from?
Definitely learned the curiosity and persistence from my parents, but optimistic, I think that's just one of those things that I learned over time through different battle, through different experiences, that optimism is a choice and it makes life a hell of a lot better. So whether it's the experiencing of being bullied or living the daily startup life where you get your teeth kicked in every day, it's, being optimistic really does change the hue of the sky and the silver lining on everything. So it's just something that I've learned, that I want to make that choice to find the positive in everything.
I love
Could
that.
not agree more with that. If we would have known you in middle school, would we have known that you'd be here today?
Oh, no way. Like in middle school, I absolutely wanted to be like a math nerd who was going to become an astronaut. I was going to be like the aerospace engineer turned pilot turned astronaut growing up. And then I hit a growth spurt and realized I was too tall to be an astronaut. You can't tell in this box, but I'm 6'3". So I'm way too tall for that life. And just a lot of pivots and a lot of cool opportunities led me to the health tech, mental health entrepreneur space several years later.
That's wild. Astronauts are wild. I didn't realize that astronauts, I saw this one day, but they are, I looked at the resume of an astronaut, and the one that I looked at had 3 PhDs, was a Navy SEAL, and had done all this crazy research stuff in the Antarctica or something. I was like, what on earth are these humans? So that's a wild time. I love that they're the ones out there in space. So that's cool. When did it turn? Was there a moment that it turned from astronaut, finance, math stuff into mental health and technology?
No, I think it was a lot of just ping pong, pinball, different things that happened in my journey. So I went to college to still be an aerospace engineer, and then realized I did not want to spend my life in a wind tunnel and doing calculations. I like people and I want to be around people. Okay, so I'll just pivot into the business world and still stick with numbers and end up in finance, and went into the investment banking, financial advising world, and just didn't love it. My wife got a job at a health tech company. She came home every day talking about how much she loved the culture of being influencing and innovating the health technology space. And I came home these numbers suck and everybody's a jerk and everybody's so selfish. I got to get out of here. It's I went and followed her path over to where she was working, and that's where I accidentally found my calling in health tech. And then I spent the last 15 years almost working in health tech before starting Raise to really get specific in the mental health space 2 years ago.
Damn, that's wild. I didn't know about that foray into health tech before Raise. I, for some reason, thought you went right from finance into Raise, but that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, so I spent a decade and was an executive at the largest health tech company in the world. So I got some really cool opportunities to figure out how to put health technology in spaces that is impossible. Like we did a project with the Department of Defense and had to figure out how do you put a medical record on a submarine, or how do you put it where there's no cell phone connectivity when you're being shot at in a war zone? Like how do you document a soldier who needs help and like make sure that they get care all the way back from the forward deployed all the way back to care back stateside. So like it's been super cool to be part of some of those really big, really complicated projects along the way.
That's awesome. That's cool. And people, but so RIP Cerner, like, because Cerner is who you're talking about, correct? Like, they got bought by Oracle, though. So rest in peace. We still love you, Cerner.
I was super lucky to work there, like, in the heart of its heyday when everything was growing so fast and it was really aligned with what the industry needed. And again, there's so many consequences to the negative side of what happened to healthcare because of digitizing health records, but so many amazing things have happened too, and was just lucky to be there at the right time and have the right opportunities to grow and help shape some of the big projects that we had.
Damn.
Do you have any major takeaways from your time at Cerner? Like any kind of, these are 3 or 2 things that I learned?
One is healthcare is always moving and there's always more that's needing or more that's needed out there. So find a way to be 1 or 2 steps ahead. And right now in healthcare, that's data. Like how do you get insight and how do you get value out of the mountains of data that exist? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I learned that was really more of a culture thing. So the founder had two real sayings that I really resonated with. One was be bold. Like we are at our best when we are bold. And the other is one more round after sundown. Like the work never ends. And if you're putting in the work and if you are going one step farther faster than others, you will continue to compound on that to go make a real difference for people.
Damn. I love when there's inspirational founders that create other founders. Like one of the things in like the science field is if like you're the like head of a lab or the head PhD at something, like people kind of judge you or base your credibility and how good you are at your job on your like acolytes and the researchers that come from your lab kind of thing. And so I just wonder how many people came out of Cerner. And is Cliff the one you're talking about, or is
Neil Patterson? Yeah, I mean
Neil Patterson.
Neil, Cliff, and Paul were the 3 founders of Cerner, and they really took hey, let's do a small consulting thing into a global health digitization behemoth.
Yeah, small consulting. That's crazy. That's awesome. In relation to, what about your own mental health? Like you mentioned, you kind of dropped a little hint, but what's your journey with mental health been? Maybe when you were younger, as a founder, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I was that kid in high school that you would have guessed had the perfect life. I did really well in academics, music, sports, but like I had bullies I really battled, and like I really struggled with my mental health, like to the point of planning suicide. And I'm just super lucky that somebody was there to just say, hey, I don't think you're okay at the right time. And that like really, that was kind of the start of the optimism piece of me. Like I've got to find a way to see something worth being here for that I was not finding. And, that happened that was high school and college. Like I had issues with anxiety as like I really learned how to study and figured out the adulting thing. I'm like everybody else. And, as I continued to make all these pivots in my career and life, I always felt like an imposter. Like I always felt like I was less than everybody else there. I always felt like I wasn't as skilled or as an expert. All these people with these degrees and years of experience. And here I was day one, like, trust in me, I can do this. This is my second day on the job. It was a constant battle inside myself of like, I'm not worthy, but I have to convince myself that I can still do it and still show up and keep going. And that still happens today in startup world. Like 99 no's for 1 maybe. And you just keep going and believe that what you're doing is going to make a difference and learn as much as you possibly can. The curiosity side, like my competitive differentiation is I'm going to learn more than anybody else. And so I may not know more than everybody else now, but I'm going to keep learning until I get there and make as much difference as I can along the way.
Damn. Makes you hard to beat.
Do you have any favorite mental health tools? Do you have any like daily practices that you do that help with anxiety or
Mm.
imposter syndrome when that comes up?
I keep a journal, and I don't do it every day. And if you tell yourself you do it every day and then you don't, you feel guilty about it. But like as often as I can, I'm always like, what did I do yesterday? Like, what is really important to me now? Like, what do I want to go do next? What are my wins and what am I struggling with? Like, if I document those along the way, I can go back and look at 15 days ago. I was like, wow, look what I accomplished. Look what I did there. I've got 15 journal entries of things that I've accomplished. Maybe I'm not so much of an imposter as I think that I am, or like how has my focus evolved? Like, am I continuing to focus on the same thing? Is that a good or a bad thing? Like, that's really helped me. But also, I exercise every single day, and it's not like pumping iron, like running marathons. I get up and walk 2 miles around my neighborhood at 5:30 in the morning. Some days I'll go run, some days I'll go do more, but I'm just up every day. Like that, I just have to be committed every day to start the morning and get started the right way. And that's really helped me find peace and find clarity and find the energy that I need to be up before the rest of the world and just start my day the right way.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like so many founders have that get up before everyone else type mentality, uh, whether it's to work out or whether it's to like grind on some stuff or whatever. Like, I just feel like that's something that helps. And it does make you kind of feel, to me, it makes you feel like I got to win. I was like, yeah, I already won today. Like, it's
Yeah.
only uphill from here.
And I didn't do it because like I'm a founder and I'm better than everybody else. Like I did it because I went to a doctor and they said, "Dude, you are too young to be this old, and like you got to get active." And
Wow.
so like, it was one of those wake up calls. Like I'm almost 40, and so I've got to stop acting like I'm 19 years old and can like pound Red Bulls and Halloween candy every day and be just fine. And it's like that was in June, and I literally 140 days later have been every single day getting my steps in, getting up every morning, going and doing the thing because I need to be here and I need to go do stuff and I need to make a difference.
Heck
Dang.
yeah.
What was it about the doctor saying that to you that like instantly changed your behavior? Is it like, I've got a legacy to leave, I've got family to be with, I've got like, what was it for you?
Well, it was all things that I knew. Like I knew that and it's great being tall so I don't look fat when I'm like overweight. It's
I feel
I'm
that.
grateful for that fact, but like I was overweight and I went into the doctor and like, we need you to come back for more tests because we think you have a lot of problems. And if we don't fix them now, like you're gonna have a shorter life. And that was just enough for me to be like, oh my, I need to actually step in and step up and start making the choices every day that make it easier for me to make as many choices I want for as long as I can. And so, like, yeah, I've got 3 little kids, got an amazing wife, amazing family, amazing life. Like, I need to do everything that I can to enjoy and maximize all of that as long as I can.
Damn, that makes a lot of sense to me. That'd freak me out too. I'd be like, all right, doc, whatever you say, man. So that's cool. So let's talk about Raise. I would love to, if you could just give us like the elevator pitch to begin with and just pretend that it's a consumer that or a person who has never heard about this before. Just tell us a little bit about Raise.
Yeah, Raise is really about using the most advanced technology to find the 17-year-old me that was never going to get help that needed it the most. So RAI is technology that you embed into different environments that can detect when people are experiencing different mental health conditions and automatically alert the right person to engage with them, whether that's outreach, intervention, wellness checks, self-guided alerts, reminders, whatever it is. We are the detection, connection, and progression function that's missing in the value chain of mental health today.
Talk to us about that value chain. That's the piece I always loved to understand was where you saw the gap and how you placed yourself in it.
Yeah, in my own mental health journey and in several other people that I know, well, I mean, like my co-founder's brother's gone from the world because of mental health, like way too soon. Like we both have seen the adverse impacts of mental health being your own responsibility to figure out. It's been so stigmatized for so long, and we whisper about it, and like you have to go like quietly go get help, and so like, but you're on your own. And so if you have a problem here and you need to get there, it's up to you to get there. And there is no, hey, I'm having a problem right now, and let's make that the front door to this support automatically. So that's what we saw is no matter what silo or solution or service or whatever it is that you need to be well, you need to be found and brought to that resource, because 75% of people who have mental health issues don't get help at all. So how do we start getting those people who we know aren't doing okay the easiest path possible to get to the right support to do better and feel better? And even when things fall off and they hit the mountains of mayhem or valleys of despair between therapy couch sessions, when they are getting help, they still need to be found and brought back to the source who can help them again. It's a constant thing. So that's our role, is how do we always have a pulse on how well we're doing, or be that early detection radar to know when somebody needs help and make sure that they get there right away.
And how are you detecting whether someone's mental health is declining?
Yeah, so we've built AI that can understand different mental health conditions simply by the way that we communicate. So when we are talking in everyday language, there are very nuanced but distinct ways that we experience and express different mental health conditions. And so we've built technology that can understand that, whether it's depression, anxiety, or thoughts of suicide. And it's not just a black and white trigger, it is a sliding scale from, we'll just say 0 to 100. And along those scales, you may have different urgencies or different types of needs, or different severity of support structures that you need. So building that structure in there to not only detect the different types of needs, but the severity and urgency and types of resources that are needed for that, to then make sure that that care is provided. So it really is built on building technology that you can integrate where people are already communicating. Think like healthcare call centers, community call lines, where there's consent inside, like EAP programs for employers, wherever there's consent and privacy can be achieved, where people are already asking for some kind of help, where mental health is next door to that. Like, we can be that automatic funnel to detect them and move them over to the right type of support that's going undetected, but is the multiplier causing all the problems for everything else going on in their life.
Got it. So you're plugging into different, just so people are clear, you're plugging into, like, where you're finding these people is there would be like a call center that's like, hey, Craig, we'd love to be able to detect this kind of stuff and people to call us. And then you could integrate into their call system, the technology that handles all their calls and things, monitor the conversations, and then send indicators or something like that. Am I directionally accurate?
Calling the nurse advice line, like, hey, I've got this rash. I'm not sure if I broke my ankle or just hurt it really bad, but it's purple and I can't walk. I want to talk to somebody before I go into urgent care. We are that mental health co-pilot on that call to detect, hey, there's also an undetected mental health need that's occurring that may be causing some of these physical health symptoms. Let's also get them in to get support on the mental health side. So it really is this automated thing behind the scenes, that there's other resources that people are needing that aren't directly being addressed. How can we find that need and address it in the most effective way possible?
And what kinds of things is it picking up on? Like, do you have any idea of like the types of things it's detecting, or like how could something, if I'm just an average person that has no idea about AI, like it seems almost impossible that me just talking to you could help you understand that I'm anxious or depressed or something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of what we do today really is just on the words and phrases. Like, your word choice changes when you experience different things. Like, if you're in a great mood, you're going to use more optimistic language and you're going to say things of more excitement and pleasure related. But when you are depressed, you're going to be throwing out these silent signals and say things like hopeless and it's all too much. Some of those things are easy for us to pick up, but aren't so easy to pick up in the context of another conversation. So, like, if I'm talking to you about my rash, or I'm talking about financial issues or whatever it is, I'm going to be laser focused in on helping you in that manner that I called. And it's so easy to miss those other things. So being able to pick those up is really a key of what we're solving for.
Is that like a live thing? Like when the, like, I'm a call agent person and I'm like got my screen and stuff. Is it like saying, hey, detecting anxiety or something like that? Or like, what does it look like on their end?
Yeah, it can be a true live alert system or a summarization on like a daily basis as well. So depending on the environment that we work in, we can do it in like a true, pretty much real time, to be able to feed those alerts back to something like, hey, this person may actually need to go be transitioned to 988 for support with their mental health crisis that you're missing. Or it's that, hey, this is a QA function. They already called about help. this is the next way you can provide support for them inside your ecosystem.
Wow. So it could automatically have some type of next action to take as opposed to just random information. I love that.
Yep, exactly.
How's it been received? Has it been, how have things been going? I know newer here, but like, how's it been being received? Are people getting it? Is it working? It's like, does it, like, what do you know so far?
Yeah, this is really early in the use of this technology. And so, as we talk about what we do, inevitably at some point in the conversation, the phrase big brother comes up. Like, so it's like, all right, yes, I get it. Like, if you're not consenting to this and you're not aware that this is here and you're not seeking some kind of help where part of your support is going to be mental health inside that ecosystem, no, this is not where we should be operating. But when we start to talk about the value and the impact of if you can be well, then you can do well, this really is the multiplier that impacts every other aspect. Burnout, quiet quitting, attrition, worse performance, like all of these other things that are like plaguing these, whether it's a community group, a college, or a health system, we can help elevate the well-being of their people to go do better. And so once we start to get into the deeper level of that, hey, your credit card is monitoring all of your financial activity in every location to tell you if there's potential fraud. By the way, Facebook and Instagram are listening to and Alexa and Google and whoever else are listening to everything, even though you're not like expressly giving them permission to recommend bed sheets and t-shirts and whatever else you need on Amazon. Like, why don't we actually put some of these technology frameworks to good use where you're giving consent that can actually offer you support the moment that you need it to help save your life or the people that you really care about's lives to make them be better. And once we start to talk like that, people are like, oh my gosh, we can actually know when people need help and make it easy to get better adoption of the things that we're funding inside our ecosystem. Let's do this. So it's been exciting to go through that educational and perspective journey with people as they go from the, hey, no, big brother, like we're not interested, to the, well, wait, I'm responsible for the safety of all my people, and mental health causes lots of safety issues in the community. And my people are quitting because they're burnt out, or they're doing worse at work because they're struggling with their mental health. But I'm paying for like therapy, and I'm paying for EAPs, and I'm paying for counselors. Wait, this is my funnel to automatically get them to those resources so that more people are using them and we get better outcomes from our people. That also has an upside on the revenue side. Okay, let's keep talking. So it's been really cool to go through the journey with people as they start to understand, mental health is a secret sauce that we haven't figured out as a society yet. As we come out of this stigmatized cloud, like this is the next superpower that we figure out for our population.
Is there any kind of because it sounds B2B, which is great, and I love that, and they're consumers inside of companies. So, but I'm just curious, are there any for the average consumer who is interested in this kind of thing, like, and this might be better for the future section, but any way for the consumer themselves to access this, or maybe a startup who is, maybe it's something like Gong that monitors sales calls and they want to be able to use monitor salespeople's mental health or something like that and help with that. Like, is there ways that consumers can access this at all, or any plans for that?
Yeah, so we're looking at a consumer version of what we do that is more like a self-discovery and journaling app. So you can be able to journal and to capture how you're doing. And then we can also, with our technology, monitor the trends of how things are going and help make recommendations to get improvement. So it's something that we're working on now. And, whether that's a journaling app or a parental monitoring app for teenagers, like we're looking at different ways to get this in the consumer's hands as well.
Yeah, that'd be so interesting. Even like, dude, like a Zoom plugin or something that could listen to like your Zoom calls, or I mean, there's so many ways that this can apply. So, and that's the hardest part about a startup, is there's so many doors and you got to know which ones to go into. So you probably don't need any more ideas, to be clear, but it's kind of interesting.
I love ideas.
I'm here for it.
I'm really curious, like, what's this process been like building Raise? Like, what have been some of the bigger challenges that you've had to come across?
So we are coming up in a few weeks on 2 years since I quit my full-time job to go do this as the thing. And honestly, everything in a startup is a challenge. Like how to figure out who your customer is, how to have money, how to make sure that you're doing the right things legally, from like an IP perspective, from a company formation perspective. Those are all things that are challenges that happen every day that you just have to lean into as part of the curiosity side. Like, okay, I've got to go figure this out or I won't have a business. But, I think like lately, like we've been like figuring out, okay, how can we invest in what we're doing without running out of money? Like, what is the perfect thread the needle that we thread through to nail an inflection point of making a big difference before going out of business? So like we're constantly taking those risks to see how far we can go as we try to build this up and try to build on what we're doing. But I think probably the hardest thing has been figuring out the ideal customer.
Mm.
And I think that what we did well was problem in search of a solution, where too many startups are solution in search of a problem. Hey, I have an idea.
Oh,
Let's shop the idea out and hopefully it solves somebody's problem. But like we looked at, okay, what are the biggest problems in mental health? What are the biggest problems in healthcare? And really it's this connection function inside the mental health space. Like, so we knew that there was a problem and we knew that people were investing in trying to solve it. But as a startup, like which space do we start in that has the speed to go after purchasing, but also can go move the meter and do big things with us? So is finding that perfect product market fit is probably the hardest, most stressful part of a startup to help start to build the momentum going from 0 to 1.
so how'd you do it? Like, talk to us about this. Like, you can't hold the secrets.
Fail repeatedly, guess, test out theories and ideas. Like we talk to as many people as you can, as often as you can, getting their inputs. Like don't go like, hey, this is my solution. Is it good enough? But just go, hey, what's your problem and what are you willing to spend your last dollar on to solve it? And like that helps you
Damn,
start
that's a good
to
question.
see where there's a market for the idea. Because you can have great ideas and great solutions that don't make good businesses. And so like as we started to ask like, hey, what are you willing to spend your last dollar on to solve in the mental health space? Like that's where we started to find like, some markets see this as a bow on top or the cherry on top of what's already going on. And if they get to it, great. But others like, this is the number one thing we have to solve. Like higher education, retention is number one. Number two is safety and mental health of their students. Like they've got to figure this out because students won't graduate. They won't do well in class. Like, so it's like we started to find our market as we started asking deeper questions.
And how did you discern who to listen to? That's something that always, as a founder, stresses me out. It was like, who on earth do I listen to? Whose feedback should I follow? Like, everybody has an opinion in a way.
Yeah.
So how do you discern that personally?
At the end of the day, you have to trust your gut more than anything else. But it's also a volume game. Like if I ask one person what to do, they're going to give you an answer. But if I ask 100 people what to do, there's going to be trends inside that 100 people that if I pay attention to the thread across all 100, great. Nobody said the same thing, but there was this theme here that they all talked about. So it really becomes a volume game of great. So-and-so that I really respect and is an expert said this. Okay, I'm going to start with this hypothesis. Who are the next 99 people that I can talk to disprove it or prove it? And I think what we forget about is we all try to reinforce what we know along the way versus taking a more scientific approach of how do I disprove my theory until I've run out of things that could disprove it, which in fact then proves my theory. It's like that's kind of my mindset is how many things can I do to try to prove myself wrong and prove every opinion that I've heard wrong until I've run out of ways to try to prove it wrong to get to a point of clarity. Okay, this is in fact probably right.
It is such a freaking great. So many people, I feel like, forget or don't even know that science is generally trying to prove themselves wrong, not find something out new necessarily.
Well, look at the trolls on social media. Like the whole world is like, how do I prove myself right in every conversation versus, okay, how do I open myself up for feedback and open my mind up for ideas and perspectives that get to a better, broader truth versus trying to hold down the fort for what I think my opinion is.
Damn. Couldn't it be better a week before the elections here in the US to hear this message? I couldn't agree more with you. So that is awesome. Speaking of research, what kind of research went into Raise, like before we went on, you were mentioning a new research partner you just got. So I know there's new research coming out, but what kind of research did you guys come up with beforehand? Like it's mental health. So there's got to be a lot that you've done.
We've gone through a couple of different phases of research to come up with where we are. Phase one was, how do we get enough conversational data where people are experiencing mental health issues to understand that a condition actually is predicated or detectable on the way they're communicating. And so we have 13 million examples of how people communicate in mental health issues to be able to know the differences of, okay, this person is depressed, anxious, suicidal within that, and to then reinforce and train that against another billion parameters of what people talk about when they aren't experiencing those, to be able to know the difference. So it really was not just how do we build what people are expressing when they're experiencing an issue, but what are they expressing when they're not experiencing any issues? And so we took everything from suicide notes, social media posts, transcripts, all of these things that were then reviewed by mental health experts to get a clinical impression on that context, or the vice versa. People were experiencing something, and this is the conversation they had once we proved that they were experiencing that, to really train the base layer of the technology. And then we did several different data partnerships and data strategies to go validate that, hey, from this hypothesis and from this data, what does it look like? And we got it over the first 18 months to go from 50 to 80 to 98% accurate.
Wow.
So then that's when we were comfortable with it being a live environment. And we have officially now have a university research partnership where we're doing blind to blind studies of people talking conversationally and people filling out PHQ, or the like health questionnaire questions of how they're feeling. These questions are what you'll experience in or hear in a doctor's office. So being able to then compare what people are normally diagnosed for a mental health condition versus what we're able to do with our technology for blind to blind to see the accuracy, but then also to be able to train and reinforce. This is what somebody said. This is what they were experiencing. Great, we'll train it if it wasn't completely accurate and help build on the data that we have.
Dude, that is awesome. I mean, you could have someone listening to intakes of mental health professionals, doctors, whatever, and be able to potentially like just tell them right off the bat without having to do. That's freaking great. I love that.
And part of this research study is going beyond just the PHQ level of understanding of somebody's well-being. This survey is a 75-page questionnaire of everything from experiencing traumas in their life to the different their healthcare background. So we're going to know a ton of different health, social, and personal. It's anonymous, but we'll know different demographics and criteria about that person, to then be able to also know, hey, beyond just how people are talking, what are other things that are highly predictive indicators that somebody's going to experiencing a mental health issue in the near future. So it gives us like a whole new layer of perspective just to go beyond real-time understanding of somebody's well-being to start to predict, hey, based off of the experiences in this person's life over the next X days, weeks, months, they're the most likely to experience this condition.
Wow.
So it might not be like research yet, but have there been any user feedback or anecdotal pieces or case studies that have been like, whoa, this is wild, this really worked well, even though it's not like research yet? Like, have you had stories or moments like that where a real human, it detected in something a real human, that human was like, wow, how did you know that type moments?
I can't wait until we have those like live like stories of the, hey, this, because of this, I'm still here. We are now on the cusp of putting it in environments where we know that's going to happen. And so I'm super pumped that we've been able to go on this 2-year journey to get there. But we've already had so many great cheerleaders out there who have like just said, this is amazing. It's I can't believe this exists. It's so cool that you are willing to lean in to solve this problem, and any problem can be solved with AI or healthcare or whatever. This is what we're leaning in to solve. So we've already been so fortunate to have such a really cool community that believes in what we're doing and contribute their time, their ideas, their feedback to continue to build up the rungs of the ladder of the impact that we're going to have.
Nice. That's awesome. And is it live anywhere yet? Like, is anybody able to use it yet? Like, what's the progress on there? I know it's super new, so I'm just curious.
Yep. So this research partnership is fully live, where we've had I think over 200 participants, and it will be up to 1,500 participants before May of next year. So it's being
Damn.
used, we're getting all the data in, and we've got a couple of different environments that are being data partners or just getting ready to flip the switch on as well. So a lot over the next 6 months, where we'll have some really cool stories and use cases to start talking about.
That's awesome. And is this one of the biggest things in AI models is like some AI companies are scared when OpenAI comes out with an update and some are pumped. And that's like the thing that you hear. Is this like a custom model or is this interchangeable? Like, can you like, you have the unique data and then you can run any model through it? Like if that's proprietary, it's cool too, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, and part of it is our secret sauce, but we do some work with large language models that are out there, like the big ones that are out there. Some of how we get our results and some of how we validate what we do some integration there. So we've got a really cool couple of partnerships helping us there. So every time they advance, we advance. So it's a win, and it makes it so much easier, so much faster, so much more authentic and accurate. The more that they can do, the more and easier it is for us to go be successful as well.
I like that.
I'm super curious from collecting all this data, like what are the biggest takeaways you've learned? Like, say if I'm somebody who doesn't have access to it yet, and I really want to be more self-aware and know maybe when my friends are declining, are there any like red flags we could look out for in communication when somebody is rapidly declining?
I think a lot of it comes down to people's outlook. Like, how do they see the world in everyday situations?
Mm-hmm.
Is the glass always half empty? Are things happening to them instead of with them or for them? Like if you start to feel like, the world is just closing in on me, like you can start to see somebody like they're shifting from the world's my oyster to there's just too much for me to try to keep up with all the problems that are happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when people start talking about changes in habits or changes in like if they become more stressed easily, like if they're eating more, if they're sleeping less, if they're less social than they used to be, some of those key behaviors like that are part of their personality and the person that they are, if some of those things start to shift, then those are things to be worried about. But honestly, there's nothing more power than your intuition. Like if whoever you think of right now, that person's not okay. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter why you think they're not okay. That's the first person you need to reach out to because something inside of you, whether you can quantify it or not, there's something that is different or something that is worth validating how they're doing. And so our guts and our intuition are really good at telling us, I should check on this person. So go do it. Stop waiting for this perfect sign that says, you know what? They haven't changed their eating habits. They haven't gained a bunch of weight. They haven't stopped showing up at these things. They haven't stopped smiling. Well, maybe they have an awesome mask, but your intuition tells you it's a mask now. It's not their authentic self anymore. So yeah, just go check on them.
That is a fire piece of advice. I love that. Let's pretend that somebody is watching this. That person just clicked in their mind. What do they say? Like when you say check in on them, like what does someone need to hear in that moment? What should they say? Do you have any frameworks for that work for you? Or
so there's some really cool models out there, and it really is about number one, asking if they're okay. And it doesn't matter, just like, hey, you're my friend, and I'm checking in on my friends. I think mental health is important. Are you okay? But then the number one thing after that is to just be supportive and to listen. Don't try to solve their problem. Don't try to relate to it. Say, I've been there too. Don't let it come back to you. Just say, man, I bet that's hard. Just keep asking questions. Keep reinforcing and naming their feelings. Hey, I bet that makes you feel angry. Man, I bet that makes you really just disheartened. But then from there, keep in touch. Always keep checking in on them and keep being there. The worst thing that we can do, that we can possibly do, is say, let me know if you need anything. Because this person's not okay and they didn't reach out to you.
yeah.
So you have to come to them, whether it's, hey, I brought you cookies, or hey, let's go to the movies. Do something for them because they're not going to ask you for help. That's the struggle with mental health, is we just internalize it so much. To go do something, some act of service, some show that you care about them and are thinking about them, and meet them more than halfway there, because they're going to have a hard time getting halfway there on their own.
That's awesome. I love that. Great. That's great. Please go do that and comment back on here who you went and helped. All right, we got to ask this. I'm sure you get this all the time, but you're predicting mental health in a way here. There's risks associated with this. If we're being real, right? There could be. How do you guys mitigate some of the, what are some of the risks that you have top of mind at all times? I can think of a couple. I get them too. And then how are you mitigating those?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is if we detect somebody and nothing happens, and the organization doesn't follow through, that's a huge liability. And then a crisis happens. The only thing worse than not knowing somebody needs help is knowing somebody needs help and doing nothing about it. So we have to make sure that in our work that there's always the and then what conversation. Great, I found Susie sophomore, or I found this person here who's struggling and I alerted you to them. What are you doing with that? And we also have partnerships in place to make sure that the follow through occurs, whether that's digital therapy or the different apps. We have some of those partnerships if these organizations don't have them in-house. So there's a huge liability if you just throw people in a while, okay, this person's not okay, great. It doesn't work that way. But I will also say on the other side is it has been proven over and over and over again, if you call somebody out and ask them, hey, have you thought about harming yourself? It never leads them to harming themselves when they weren't already thinking about it. So you will never make it worse if you ask them if they're not doing okay. It always makes it better. You just always have to make sure you have that follow through mechanism to make sure that you're there to actually support them when they say, no, I'm not. I do need help. That's a lot of the framework that we work through, is making sure that the and then what is solved for to make sure people are getting help.
Yeah, that's big. There's a lot of shame around suicidality, self-harm, self-injury, all these types of things. A lot of times when you bring up the conversation, there's a sigh of relief, actually, not a, you got it, here I go. It's just not how the mind works. So that's a great thing to remind people of. I love that. In relation to, what about the future? Is there anything long-term that you, or a vision that you have for Raise in the future? What are you working towards? What are you trying to become in the future?
Yeah, so we're really trying to become the real-time resource detection platform so that can plug into any environment and understand a vast array of needs that people have to automatically coordinate that referral or next step of care, whether that is physical health, spiritual, emotional, all the different types of support that you may need, financial, academic. How can we detect any type of resource need that somebody needs and automatically get that person to that resource so that they get the value out of it? And that's one of I think the biggest powers of where technology is now is 80% of people say that they can detect when somebody needs something, but 80% of people also say they don't feel supported in the needs that they have. So there's this optimism and realism gap between I can find somebody and I can help and somebody getting help. How do we close that gap so that those who could help are getting help with those who feel like they need it? So we want to bring that together. That's our big vision of how do we detect all of those things? How do we connect all of those things so that care is constantly progressing and that outcomes and support is constantly progressing?
What are some of the missing technologies to integrate, to make that reality true? What would you say are some of the gaps or missing technologies?
I don't know. I don't know yet that I think where AI is now, all of that's solvable. I think there isn't missing technology. There's just missing organization of data. If we can get to a point where we have the data organized in the right way, then all of that is solvable with the technology that we now have. Data is the newest currency. And if we can help organize it in the right way, we can help get the best outcomes and get the value that people need.
Interesting. I haven't heard it put that way before. I like that. I do love data though, so that's great.
Where
Cool.
do you hope to see the future of mental health in 10 years? What's your kind of hope and vision?
I think that I want to see mental health reinvented so that it is done from the perspective of the person experiencing need versus the organization that owns the outcome of said need. Because that's where all these handoffs happen, and that's where gaps in support happen. So I would love to see, and that's part of what we're trying to do, is how do we rebuild this value chain so no matter where you are, whether that's prevention or flourishing or positive psychology, addiction recovery, early intervention, like all the way through. Hey, this person is here in their journey, and this is the thing or the things that help them through that. And I hope that over the next 10 years, we realize that we have to make this centered on the patient and not centered on the organizations who provide the services for the patient. And once we do that, everybody realizes that they are a piece of that journey and a piece of that puzzle. And as long as they're leaning in, their businesses are going to be better than they ever have because all those handoffs get eliminated and they will get more outcomes and more value and more customers and more everything because there's no gaps between care.
Kind of like that rising tide raises all ships kind of saying, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
If you raise up the consumer, the actual person with the problem, then anyone who helps solve that problem will also benefit. So that's awesome. I love that. All right, let's bring this thing in for a landing. Told you we'd get you out of here in an hour. I promised. We always have our signature last questions, final five, if you will, questions we like to go through. My first question is my favorite. Chloe loves it too. Is what's a question that you wish more people asked you?
Why do you care?
Damn, that's a good one. Why? Okay, so why do you care? Why do you care, Greg?
Well, let me frame this because so often you come in and people brand you by the work that you do or the title that you hold or the company that you work for, not the why of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's how do I find the 17-year-old version of me? How do I look in the mirror and know that I've maximized the number of lives that are positively impacted? That's going to be my true north and my motivation every day is how do I go impact more people at the biggest scale I possibly can? And so you'll see everywhere, wherever my journey goes from this day forward, will follow that why. Because it's for my kids, it's for this whole next generation, it's for this whole society who's spiraling the wrong direction. How can I be part of increasing the impact upstream?
Damn. Powerful. I like that.
Yeah. Right. What's one important truth that very few people agree with you on?
Happiness is a decision.
Ooh.
Expand.
Too many people see that happiness comes as part of some kind of checkpoint or destination. I'll be happy when I'm married. I'll be happy when I'm promoted. I'll be happy when I have kids. I'll be happy when the pandemic's over. I'll be happy when the election's over. Like it is always something away tied to some object. Happiness is not an object. It is a state of mind on a journey towards some object. We get to choose whether we're happy or not in the pursuit of those things. So we're always going to be on a journey towards some object or towards something, and we get to choose to find the happiness. Again, back to my optimism. We get to choose and do things that can bring us happiness. Go after activities where happiness is a byproduct. Go on a journey where happiness is a byproduct of that versus trying to chase something that we will then be able to be happy.
Damn. I like that. Happiness is a choice. It is a decision. That's cool. That's a good one. All right. Next one. Speaking of decisions, what is a partnership or connection that would really help you outside of money?
I think for us, it really is the people who see the unique lens of where technology is going and where healthcare is going. So being connected with those unique thought leaders who speak technology and speak healthcare, sign me up for getting to collaborate with them. Those are the 5 people that I want to be surrounded with in my life who are thinking about what we could do to go make a difference by bringing these worlds and these collisions together.
Got it.
So a tradition we have on the podcast is we have a previous guest leave a question for the next guest. So Anand Sharma, the CEO of Gyroscope, left this question for you. What would you do if you were the only person on Earth?
I don't know.
Very open-ended.
I know. That was a wild one. He's a crazy, awesome dude. I love him.
I've seen the movie I Am Legend, and that's not like a great perspective of being the only person on Earth. I don't know. Like I think that I would go into creator mode. Like what if all the resources are still here and people aren't, like what can I create? Like what resources can I put together to build rocket ships, time machine. I don't know, like what is at my disposal to go play with, to go create and get in creator mode? I would tinker. That's what I would do. If I was the last person here, I would tinker and try to create something.
Like,
Random.
I wasn't expecting that answer. It's cool. Maybe you're looking for other people. Okay, it's your turn. So the last question is, you get to leave a question for our next guest. Without knowing who it is or anything like that, they'll be a founder of a health tech type company or whatever. But what's a question you want to leave for them?
I'm going to cheat because somebody asked me this question that was like the hardest question, but also I think a really cool question.
Okay.
If in the center of your town there was a billboard up about you and your life in 10 words or less, what would your billboard say? Like, is it motivational? Is it informational? Like, what is your billboard if there was a billboard about you out there?
Like you as a person or the company?
The person.
The person. What's your say?
Mine is be bold, be curious.
Be bold, be curious. Damn. That's a good one. I like that one. Cool. All right. Well, we'll ask. I honestly, I can't remember who's next, but we will ask them that exact question. I'm excited to hear that. We should add that to our signature questions. That's a great
That
one.
might be a signature one. It's a really good one.
That could be a good one. What would you do, or what would you put, what would your 10 words be on a billboard if it was representing you in the center of your town? I like that. We're going to get one for you, Craig, right there, right in the center of the city. Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. You're out there doing great work for the future of humanity. So truly appreciate you taking some time to be here with us. Is there anything any place you want to point people towards, or anything that you want to leave people with as we wrap up?
No, thank you both for having me. I appreciate the work that you're doing. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to our website at raisehealth.ai, but I would love to connect and collaborate with anybody and everybody who's trying to improve the world of mental health.
Heck yeah. And we'll make sure to put all that in the show description as well, so that you can find Craig and Raise. And thank you all for showing up today. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe if you want to see more of us. But otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into the Decision Lab podcast. Peace out, everybody.
Everyone.